What a remarkable world we live in. There was recently a documentary on the United States about nuclear submarines, and particularly was the story of the USS Codfish, which spent 2 years traveling around underwater and never surfacing in a port. The Navy said that it was a test of the equipment, but in my mind it was more a test of the men who were on that submarine. So now this is the captain of the USS Codfish coming out to give some closing remarks prior to the submarine surfacing for the first time. And the session might have gone something like this. Hello, man. Can I have your attention, please? Yeah, I've got a few things I'd like to cover with you. I've just written down a few little notes, and before we surface, I'd like to bring your attention to these points. I know some of you are anxious to be reunited with your loved ones. In some cases, that'll be your wife. But I think these are important points, and so I want to take just a few minutes to go over them with you. The first thing is, I think we ought to have you fellows stand up and give an ovation to the cooks. I don't think that you men have a real appreciation for how difficult it is for the cooks to. Do you want to give up and get up and give the cooks a standing ovation, men? Come on, man. Let bygones be bygones. I mean, well, let's put it this way, fellas. If you don't stand up and give the cooks an ovation, I'm not going to surface. There you go. Yeah, there. That's better. Okay. Today, as we add another glorious page in the history of the USS Codfish, I think we should reflect back on some of the past histories of the Codfish. Probably a lot of you men don't know about these things. Most notably, the Codfish holds the record for the most Japanese tonnage sunk. That comprised of 5 freighters and 15 aircraft carriers. They were sunk in 1954, but it still stands as the largest peacetime tonnage ever sunk. Now, I think it's been unfortunate, but our voyage has received a lot of, undue coverage in the newspapers. Let's take the instance about our firing on Miami Beach. First of all, it was a slow news day, and secondly, it was the off season, so there weren't a lot of people down there at the time. So the newspapers built it up and made a big deal out of it. I think you men will agree that I've been pretty lax regarding discipline on the ship, but I would like to have the executive officer returned. It's been 2 weeks now, and we've searched the torpedo tubes and your lockers and all over, and we can't find him. So I'd like to have the executive officer back. Thank goodness it wasn't somebody important like the navigation officer, but I'd still like to have a full complement of crew when we do surface and arrive back in port. Let's take just a minute now and look back on the mutiny. I think you men weren't coming to me with your problems, and that's what perpetuated the situation. And you know, my policy, my office door is always open, and you know why. Because that's been stolen as well. I'm not making any guesses, but it looks like the work of the same man with the executive officer. Since we started the cruise on such a, shall we say, a low note, I think it's important that we end the cruise on a real high. And there's nothing in my mind any more spectacular than to have the crew of the ship out on the deck in their dress blues. And after we surface, to see those men coming out of that little thing there on the side of the ship, it's really spectacular. And I think, I've just been handed a note that we're going to be surfacing, and you'll be happy to know that you'll be looking at the familiar skyline of New York City, or is that Buenos Aires? I can't quite read your writing there. Okay. Dismissed, men. Thank you.